is a senior research fellow for defense programs at the conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation. Good to see you, Colonel. I'm trying to get a sort of a lay of the land, where the conservative thinking is right now on this proposal for $54 billion in increased military spending, but also concern among conservatives that he hasn't really laid out a plan to really pay for it.
Well, I mean, it's a skinny budget. These are just the top-line numbers, and the more detailed budget will be coming in about 30 days or so. But we've been tracking for a few years the deteriorating condition of the U.S. military, and have been reporting on that in a number of ways. So this $54 billion is a really appreciated first step toward rebuilding the military and dealing first with the short-term readiness problems of the military, and then starting to re-expand it into the capacity for operations that we really need it to be.
But you understand how budgets work. Do you see a way for $54 billion to go toward military without even potentially eliminating entire departments of the federal government?
Well, I think the $54 billion was the best that the Trump administration could do at the moment, given all of those competing requirements that you allude to: infrastructure development, health care replacement, tax reform. I mean, all those things do compete, and the same kind of debate will go on in Congress as well. So the specifics of where they take cuts and how they decide to change how the federal government gets into the lives of individuals and businesses, you know, they'll deal with those details. But from a defense standpoint, we certainly need increased spending, and both at the Senate and the House, with Senator McCain and Chairman Thornberry at the House Armed Services Committee, they're proposing a $640 billion baseline, which is yet $50 more billion than what the president is recommending.
You took part, Colonel, in the planning and execution of operations around the world, including Iraq, and you recently authored the review for the Heritage Foundation that recommended the increase in the size of the military. President Trump has endorsed one of the suggestions to add more active duty Army and Marine Corps. Do you anticipate the need for boots on the ground in the fight against ISIS?
Well, those are dramatically different situations or issues. You know, the president had requested from the Secretary of Defense recommendations for various options to handle the terrorism threat, primarily in ISIS. They're in Syria. Those recommendations have been given. They're classified, not privy to what those might be. But in terms of a historical perspective, our military is at historical lows. Just a few years ago, the Army had 45 brigades in its active component. Now they're down to 32. We used to have 450 ships in the Navy. We now have 273. So overall, the military has shrunk in size. The world remains the same, and arguably the threats have increased from a single opponent in the Soviet Union to now Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and regional destabilization from terrorism in North Africa and the Middle East.
Dakota Wood, thanks so much for coming on the program.
I appreciate it.
Stay right here on MSNBC. Next hour, my colleague Andrea Mitchell will speak with former Secretary of Defense and former CIA